David Ruffin was the unmistakable voice behind the Temptations' biggest hits like My Girl and Ain't Too Proud to Beg. He became a Motown legend and a symbol of soul music. But behind the fame, tailored suits, and chart-topping records was a man struggling with personal demons no spotlight could hide. Inside the crumbling remains of David Ruffin's abandoned house lies a stark reminder of the contrast between his monumental success and the tragedy that followed. The story reveals shocking truths about his complicated love life, the dramatic fallout with the Temptations, and the heartbreaking circumstances surrounding his untimely death. Why did Ruffin show up unannounced at Temptations concerts, grabbing the microphone from his replacement? What was the real story behind his turbulent relationship with Tammy Terrell? And how did one of Motown's brightest stars end up with a net worth of just $150,000? This is the story rarely told: the rise, the fall, and the haunting legacy of David Ruffin. David Ruffin was born Davis Eli Ruffin on January 18, 1941, in the rural community of Wynot, Mississippi, about 15 miles from Meridian. He was the third son of Elias Eli Ruffin, a Baptist minister, and Ophelia Ruffin. His siblings included Quincy B. Ruffin, Rita Mae Ruffin, and Jimmy Lee Ruffin, along with a sister, Rosine, who tragically died in infancy. Both of Ruffin's parents were Mississippi natives. His father, Eli, worked as a truck driver at lumber mills, while his mother, Ophelia, did home-based work. The Ruffin family had a long history in the South, having moved from Alabama to Mississippi after the hardships following the Civil War. David's great-grandparents, John and Clara Ruffin, had originally come from Bertie County, North Carolina. John Ruffin was a Civil War veteran who served with the 14th United States Colored Heavy Artillery Regiment. Growing up, David faced a strict and sometimes harsh upbringing under his father's discipline. His mother died from childbirth complications just 10 months after his birth. Eli remarried in 1942 to Earlene, a schoolteacher who helped raise David and his siblings. During his childhood, David performed alongside his older brothers Quincy and Jimmy and sister Rita Mae as part of a family gospel group led by his father and stepmother. The group opened for gospel legends like Mahalia Jackson and the Five Blind Boys of Mississippi. David's natural singing talent was also nurtured in the choir at Mount Salem Methodist Church and local talent shows. At just 14 years old in 1955, David Ruffin left home under the care of Minister Eddie Bush and set off for Memphis, Tennessee, with hopes of pursuing a career in the ministry. By the time he was 15, he was in Hot Springs, Arkansas, where he connected with jazz musician Phineas Newborn Sr. Performing under the name Little David Bush, Ruffin took part in talent shows, worked with horses at a jockey club, and became a member of the gospel group, the Dixie Nightingales. His musical path soon led him to briefly join the Soul Stirrers after Johnny Taylor left the group. Inspired by secular artists like Sam Cooke and Jackie Wilson, Ruffin decided at 16 to follow a similar route. With the support of Eddie Bush and his wife Dorothy Helen, he moved to Detroit, Michigan, where his brother Jimmy was already building a music career while working at the Ford Motor Company. Once in Detroit, Ruffin recorded his first released single featuring the songs You and I and Believe Me at Vega Records, using the name Little David Bush in honor of his guardian's surname. Reflecting on this early phase, Ruffin recalled experimenting with a smoother pop and R&B sound that was popular at the time. In 1957, Ruffin met Berry Gordy Jr., then an aspiring songwriter with dreams of launching his own label. During this time, Ruffin stayed with Gordy's father, a contractor, and even helped with construction on the building that would become Hitsville, USA, the future home of Gordy's Tamla Records, later known worldwide as Motown Records. At the same time, David Ruffin's brother, Jimmy Ruffin, signed with Tamla's Miracle Records label. David also worked alongside another rising star, Marvin Gaye, while apprenticing at Anna Records, a chess-distributed label run by Berry Gordy's sister, Gwen Gordy Fuqua, and her songwriting partner, Billy Davis. In a 1988 interview with the Detroit Free Press, Gwen Gordy Fuqua spoke warmly of Ruffin, calling him a true gentleman with remarkable dedication to his craft. She said, "He was very much a gentleman, yes ma'am and no ma'am, but what really impressed me was that he was one of the only artists I've seen who rehearsed like he was already on stage." During this time, Ruffin and Marvin Gaye helped with packing records for Anna Records. Ruffin took on a dual role as vocalist and drummer in the Voice Masters, a doo-wop group where he began his recording career. He contributed vocals to their track, "I'm in Love, One of These Days." The Voice Masters included future Motown producer Lamont Dozier, as well as Ty Hunter, C.P. Spencer, Hank Dixon, and Walter Gaines, who founded both the Voice Masters and the Originals. Interestingly, Melvin Franklin, who would later join the Temptations and was identified by Ruffin as a cousin, was also once part of the Voice Masters. Although David Ruffin signed with Anna Records as a solo artist, his work during that time didn't gain much traction. His path soon crossed with the Temptations, a rising local group. Ruffin's older brother Jimmy, who was touring with the Motortown Revue alongside the Temptations, told David about their need for a tenor vocalist. Interested in the opportunity, Ruffin reached out to Otis Williams, who also lived in Detroit. In January 1964, Ruffin officially joined the Temptations, replacing founding member Elbridge Al Bryant. His first recording session with the group was on January 9, 1964. Both Ruffin brothers had auditioned for the group, but it was David's standout performance at the label's New Year's Eve party in 1963 that secured his spot. At first, Ruffin mostly sang background vocals, while the lead roles bounced between Eddie Kendricks and Paul Williams. He did get a few lead parts in live shows and studio sessions during his first year, but the tracks featuring Ruffin as lead were held back for over a year, as the label felt they didn't fully showcase his talent. Smokey Robinson, the group's main producer and songwriter at the time, saw Ruffin as a sleeping giant. Robinson recognized something special in Ruffin's voice, a blend of mellow and gritty tones, and was determined to write the perfect song that would let Ruffin both belt out powerful notes and deliver a smooth, melodic sound. This vision came to life with the creation of My Girl, recorded in November 1964 and released just a month later. The song quickly climbed the charts, becoming the Temptations' first #1 hit in 1965 and soon their signature anthem. With that success, Ruffin stepped into the spotlight as the group's lead singer and frontman. Following My Girl, he led a series of hit singles like It's Growing, Since I Lost My Baby, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, I Wish It Would Rain, and I Could Never Love Another After Loving You. He also shared lead vocals with Eddie Kendricks on popular songs like You're My Everything and I Want a Love I Can See. Beyond his vocal talent, Ruffin contributed a unique touch offstage by coming up with the idea for the group's iconic four-headed microphone stand. This design let the other members sing and perform choreography without crowding around a single mic, while the lead singer used a separate one. At 6 feet 3 inches, Ruffin's commanding presence and deeply emotional performances quickly won over Temptations fans. Otis Williams recalls that Ruffin, known affectionately as Ruff, had a natural gift for comedy and showed a strong work ethic from the very beginning of his time with the group. In October 1968, David Ruffin took legal action against Motown Records, demanding to be released from his contract and seeking a full accounting of his finances. Motown responded with a countersuit, aiming to keep him tied to the label. The dispute eventually ended in a settlement requiring Ruffin to complete his existing contract with Motown. An important detail was that Ruffin had signed a separate solo contract when he joined Motown, which some believe caused tension within the Temptations. As Ruffin transitioned to his solo career, his first single, My Whole World Ended, The Moment You Left Me, originally meant for the Temptations, was released in 1969. The song became a hit, reaching the top 10 on both the pop and R&B charts. That same year, he released the album Feelin' Good. Another album, David, recorded between 1970 and 1971, was shelved by Motown and didn't see commercial release until 2004. In 1970, Ruffin teamed up with his brother Jimmy for the album I Am My Brother's Keeper, which included minor hits like When My Love Hand Comes Tumbling Down and Your Love Was Worth Waiting For. However, Ruffin's next solo album under Motown, the self-titled David Ruffin, didn't come out until 1973. Although David Ruffin's solo career showed early promise, things eventually took a downturn. His decline was often linked to his struggles with cocaine addiction and what many saw as a lack of strong backing from Motown. Ruffin's final major chart success came in 1975 with the hit Walk Away From Love, produced by Van McCoy. The song reached number 9 on the U.S. pop charts and marked Ruffin's only solo entry on the U.K. charts, where it peaked at number 10 in early 1976. It became a commercial milestone for Ruffin, selling over 1 million copies and earning him a gold disc from the RIAA in February 1976. Despite the ups and downs, Ruffin delivered a number of standout recordings throughout his solo years, including I Lost Everything I've Ever Loved, the gospel-tinged I'm So Glad I Fell For You, Blood Donors Needed, Give All You Can, Common Man, which was later sampled by Jay-Z in his 2001 track Never Change, No Matter Where, and Statue of a Fool. He also recorded soulful cover versions of the Jackson 5's I Want You Back and Brooke Benton's Rainy Night in Georgia, both intended for a 1970 solo album that Motown ultimately shelved. Another notable collaboration came with fellow former Temptation Eddie Kendricks, when they recorded a rendition of Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes' I Miss You. After parting ways with Motown in 1977, Ruffin signed with Warner Brothers Records, releasing So Soon We Change and Gentleman Ruffin. Later, he joined RCA Records, this time alongside Eddie Kendricks. The move was more than just a business decision. It marked a renewed friendship between the two, especially after Kendricks had experienced his own frustrations with the Temptations and chose to team up with Ruffin again. In 1982, David Ruffin and Eddie Kendricks reunited with the Temptations to record the album Reunion and joined the group on tour to promote its release. The album included the R&B hit Standing on the Top, which featured funk icon Rick James. Despite the excitement around the reunion, things quickly unraveled. Ruffin's ongoing issues with cocaine addiction led to several missed performances, which in turn brought heavy fines to the group. As the situation became unsustainable, Otis Williams made the decision to part ways with Ruffin once again, this time for good. Kendricks was also let go around the same time, largely due to vocal issues caused by years of heavy smoking. Both were officially dismissed by Christmas 1982. Not long after, Ruffin and Kendricks found a new rhythm together. In 1985, they formed a duo and began touring as a team. That same year, they performed with Hall and Oates, lifelong Temptations fans, at the grand reopening of the Apollo Theater in New York. Their set was recorded live and released as both an album and a single, gaining considerable attention. The collaboration continued that summer when Ruffin, Kendricks, Hall, and Oates performed a medley of Temptations classics during the Live Aid concert on July 13, 1985. A live version of The Way You Do the Things You Do and My Girl, featuring Ruffin and Kendricks, was released later that year and made its way onto the Billboard charts. In 1989, Ruffin and Kendricks were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, along with the rest of the Temptations. Following the induction, they teamed up with another former Temptations lead singer, Dennis Edwards, forming the trio Ruffin-Kendricks-Edwards. In 1991, they wrapped up a successful month-long tour in England that grossed nearly $300,000. At the time of Ruffin's death, The group was planning a European tour and had just completed recording a new single, Hurt the One You Love, for Motor City Records. David Ruffin was widely admired by fellow artists, many of whom openly praised the unique power and emotion in his voice. His longtime friend and Motown colleague Martha Reeves of Martha and the Vandellas once said, "Nobody could sing like David Ruffin." Marvin Gaye, who had known Ruffin for years and worked alongside him at the label, was particularly struck by the raw masculinity in Ruffin's vocals. Ruffin's work made me remember that when a lot of women listen to music, they want to feel the power of a real man, Gaye noted. Daryl Hall of Hall & Oates echoed similar sentiments, describing Ruffin's voice as having a certain glorious anguish that spoke to people on many emotional levels. Even Ruffin himself once admitted he didn't quite know how to define his own voice. "I don't know what kind of voice I have. I really don't," he said. "It's just about the feeling I get for the song." British rock legend Rod Stewart was also deeply moved by Ruffin's music. He recalled hearing "I Wish It Would Rain" for the first time and feeling as though it jumped out of the speakers and ravished my soul. Stewart and Ruffin eventually formed a friendship, with Stewart once telling Rolling Stone that Ruffin's voice reminded him of a foghorn on the Queen Mary, powerful, unmistakable, and unforgettable. But while his career soared, Ruffin, like many of his peers, struggled behind the scenes. His battle with drug addiction began during the height of his fame and would cast a long shadow over his life and career. His untimely death at just 50 left a deep void for his fans and the music world, though in recent years, rumors have surfaced, suggesting there may be more to his story than what was publicly known. When My Girl dropped in late 1964, it didn't just climb the charts, it cemented the Temptations as Motown royalty and Ruffin as the face and voice of the group. He quickly became a standout, his magnetic presence elevating the group's profile. But by 1967, things began to unravel. Ruffin's cocaine use grew concerning, and he started missing rehearsals and performances. As tensions rose, he began to separate himself from the group, sometimes literally. He and his then-girlfriend, singer Tammy Terrell, traveled in a custom limousine emblazoned with the silhouette of his signature black-rimmed glasses. That same year, when the Supremes were renamed Diana Ross and the Supremes, Ruffin pushed for the Temptations to be rebranded as David Ruffin and the Temptations. He wanted the spotlight, and the idea didn't sit well with the rest of the group, especially Otis Williams, the unofficial leader. Things only got worse when Ruffin began questioning the group's finances, demanding transparency, which put him at odds with Motown founder Berry Gordy. The final straw came in June 1968 when Ruffin skipped a scheduled Temptations concert in Cleveland to attend a performance by his new girlfriend, Barbara Gail Martin. The group let him go shortly afterward, on June 27th. Dennis Edwards, formerly of the Contours and a longtime friend, stepped in to replace him. Though Ruffin personally encouraged Edwards to take the role, he didn't exactly step aside quietly. He began crashing shows unannounced, grabbing the mic mid-performance, especially during classic Ruffin-era hits like My Girl or Ain't Too Proud to Beg. Fans loved it. The group, not so much. Despite talks of rejoining, Ruffin missed a crucial return show in Maryland, and the group ultimately chose to keep Edwards. By 1967, Ruffin had already made his first attempt at rehab, but addiction would continue to haunt him for the rest of his life. In 1978, he was arrested during a birthday party in Memphis for disorderly conduct after reportedly refusing to leave the venue. Police claimed he made threats against officers and their families, though Ruffin denied this and was released without bail. Legal troubles followed him into the 80s. In 1982, he served 4 months in a low-security Indiana prison for failing to pay over $310,000 in back taxes. A few years later, in 1986, he was fined for concealing stolen property, a .32 caliber Colt handgun. Then, in 1987, he was arrested again in Detroit during a drug raid. Though he was cleared of possession with intent to distribute, he was convicted of cocaine use and sentenced to probation and community service. Repeated probation violations landed him in rehab in 1989, where he completed a 28-day program at the Ariba Casriel Institute in New York. Despite everything, Ruffin continued performing and had just wrapped a successful tour of England with fellow former Temptations Eddie Kendricks and Dennis Edwards when tragedy struck. On June 1, 1991, Ruffin collapsed in a West Philadelphia crack house. He was rushed to the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania by his friend Donald Brown, but after nearly an hour of efforts, he was pronounced dead at 3:55 a.m. The official cause of death was listed as an adverse reaction to cocaine. Reports later revealed that Ruffin and another man, William Nowell, had shared 10 vials of crack cocaine prior to his death. Though authorities ruled the overdose accidental, Ruffin's family and friends questioned the circumstances, particularly the disappearance of a money belt containing $40,000. His girlfriend at the time, Diane Showers, wasn't surprised by his passing. When David had a lot of money, he would be able to do things that he wanted to do, she said. His funeral was held at New Bethel Baptist Church in Detroit. The surviving members of the Temptations performed My Girl, and music legends like Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin sang in tribute. Michael Jackson offered to pay for the funeral, though he did not attend. Tributes poured in from across the industry, with flowers sent by Diana Ross, Rod Stewart, Daryl Hall and John Oates, the Spinners, and Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. David Ruffin was laid to rest at Woodlawn Cemetery in Detroit. Ruffin's legacy continued to inspire long after his passing. The cover art of his final album, Gentleman Ruffin, was even used as the creative inspiration for rapper Wiz Khalifa's popular 2013 mixtape Kush and Orange Juice, further proving the lasting impact of his image and sound on future generations. David Ruffin was honored multiple times for his contributions to music, both as a solo artist and as a member of the Temptations. He received dual induction into the Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame at Cleveland State University, and in June 2019, he was also inducted into the Mississippi Musicians Hall of Fame. The city of Detroit paid tribute to Ruffin in a special way by naming a street after him. A section of Parkside Street, where Ruffin once lived at 17,385 Parkside, was officially renamed David Ruffin Avenue. The dedication ceremony, organized by Lamont Robinson, founder of the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, brought together family, friends, and fellow Motown legends, including Martha Reeves and Mary Wilson, to celebrate his legacy. Later that year, on October 26, 2019, Ruffin's adopted hometown of Meridian, Mississippi, also honored him by naming a stretch of 8th Street near the Temple Theater David Ruffin Boulevard. Although he was born in the nearby rural town of Why Not, Ruffin had always considered Meridian his true home. The celebration featured a lively parade led by Jackson State University's Sonic Boom of the South Marching Band. The tribute was the result of efforts by Lamont Robinson and Ruffin's son-in-law, who proposed the idea to city officials. The event also marked the unveiling of Ruffin's star on Mississippi's Arts Plus Entertainment Experiences Walk of Fame, cementing his place in the cultural history of the state. In November 1998, NBC aired The Temptations, a 4-hour miniseries chronicling the rise and evolution of the legendary Motown group. David Ruffin was portrayed by actor Leon Robinson, whose performance drew wide acclaim. However, Ruffin's family took issue with the way he was depicted in the series. Believing it cast him in an unfair light, they filed a lawsuit against the producers and Otis Williams, whose memoir served as the basis for the project. The case was ultimately dismissed, with Williams later stating he had little control over how the story was presented on screen. David Ruffin's legacy has also resonated in hip-hop culture. In his 2013 track, See My Tears, rapper Machine Gun Kelly name-dropped the soul icon with the line, "Fought every temptation, shot. I guess I'm David Ruffin, huh?" A reference to both Ruffin's tumultuous relationship with the group and his larger-than-life persona. In 2019, rapper Lil Durk released a track titled David Ruffin on his mixtape Love Songs for the Streets 2, using Ruffin's name as a metaphor in lyrics about street loyalty and staying silent under pressure, with singing being slang for cooperating with authorities. Known for his raw, emotional tenor, Ruffin's voice continues to command respect decades after his passing. Rolling Stone magazine honored him on its list of the 100 greatest singers of all time, first in 2008 and again in 2023, recognizing the deep, aching soul he brought to every note. In 1989, Ruffin was officially inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alongside the Temptations, cementing his place in music history. At the time of his death in 1991, legendary soul singer David Ruffin had a net worth estimated at $150,000, a modest sum considering his towering impact on American music as the unmistakable voice behind the Temptations' classic hits like My Girl. But Ruffin's wealth was never just about money. One of his most treasured assets was his home at 17,385 Parkside Street in Detroit's historic University District, a place that held deep meaning for both him and his family. Ruffin moved into the home on July 22, 1970, during the peak of his career. Nestled just off McNichols, the house was known for its classic charm and sturdy brick construction. Though Ruffin was frequently on the road, performing and recording, his children spent much of their childhood in that house. His son, David Ruffin Jr., later reflected that while his father wasn't home often, the house still brimmed with memories, especially during holidays like Christmas, when the family gathered in the living room to celebrate together. The home has since passed into new ownership, but its legacy endures. In recognition of Ruffin's contribution to R&B music and Detroit's cultural landscape, the city officially renamed the street David Ruffin Avenue in a 2020 ceremony. The event, organized by the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, brought together family, friends, and Motown legends to honor Ruffin's memory. Despite the challenges David Ruffin faced in life and the tragic end brought on by addiction, his legacy has never faded. His voice, influence, and unforgettable performances remain timeless reminders of a talent that helped define an era.